I was born into a villain family, ran rampant through the capital, and somehow became Empress. The first thing you need to know about me is that I am not a good person. I know people like to say that about themselves when what they really mean is, I am misunderstood, or I have trauma, or I once said something rude but secretly have a heart of gold. No. I mean it properly. I was born selfish, raised spoiled, educated expensively, and encouraged shamelessly. By the time I was 10, I knew how to cry on command. By 12, I knew how to ruin a maid without touching her. By 14, I could smile at a noble girl during tea and make her entire engagement collapse before sunset. But I had rules. No killing. No destroying innocent families for entertainment. No touching children. No framing someone for a crime that could get them executed. Everything else. Negotiable. My name is Lin Yuyao, only daughter of the Lin family. And in the capital, people called me the Little Calamity. They meant it as an insult. I considered it branding. My father was the Minister of War, famous for being ruthless, wealthy, and impossible to remove from court. My eldest brother was a general who had once threatened to burn an entire enemy camp because they interrupted his lunch. My second brother handled investigations for the Imperial Guards and had the smile of a fox who had already found where you buried the body. And me. I was the decorative knife they forgot to lock away. I did not want power. Power sounded exhausting. I did not want responsibility. Responsibility sounded worse. All I wanted was to live beautifully, eat well, wear the best silk, be obeyed quickly, and make sure nobody ever forgot that offending me was expensive. A simple dream. Very reasonable. Unfortunately, heaven misunderstood me. The first incident happened at the Spring Lantern Festival. I had worn a 12-layer crimson dress embroidered with gold thread because I wanted every girl in the capital to feel poor. Was that kind? No. Was it effective? Very. I had barely stepped out of my carriage when I saw Lady Zhu Minglin wearing a hairpin almost identical to mine. Almost. Hers was cheaper. But from a distance, people might not notice. Unacceptable. I walked straight to her. She smiled nervously. Miss Lin. I looked at her hairpin. Then at her face. Then back at the hairpin. Take it off. Her smile froze. What? The hairpin. Take it off. Her friends went silent. The entire Lantern Street seemed to lean closer. Lady Zhu's face turned red. This was a gift from my mother. And mine was custom made by the Imperial goldsmith. I did not know yours looked similar. Now you do. She clenched her hands. Miss Lin, this is too much. I slapped her. Not hard enough to injure her. Hard enough to make the point. Gasps spread through the crowd. Excellent. This was exactly the sort of reputation management I enjoyed. Then Lady Zhu burst into tears and ran away. I returned to my carriage satisfied. By morning, I expected the capital to call me arrogant. Instead, the story changed. Apparently, Lady Zhu's mother had been forcing her to attend the festival while sick because she wanted to secure a marriage alliance. When I slapped her, the physician was summoned. The physician discovered she had a high fever. By noon, people were saying I had noticed her illness from her complexion. By evening, people were saying I humiliated her publicly to force the Zhu family to stop abusing their daughter. By the next day, Lady Zhu sent me a thank you gift. I stared at the box of pastries for a long time. Then asked my maid, are people stupid? My maid thought carefully. Yes, miss. Good answer. The second incident was worse. A month later, I framed a scholar. Before you judge me, he deserved it. Scholar Y had written 3 poems mocking my family. Not clever poems either. If you are going to insult me, at least show talent. So I bribed his servant, stole one of his draft essays, and arranged for a copy to appear in the hands of his academic rival before the imperial examination. Was it petty? Yes. Was it illegal? Slightly. Was it satisfying? Extremely. The plan was simple. Scholar Y would be accused of plagiarism, lose face, and stop writing poems about me. Instead, the copied essay exposed a cheating ring inside the examination bureau. The academic rival I used was apparently the only honest student in his entire batch. He reported the suspicious paper. Investigators searched the bureau, and several officials were arrested for selling exam answers. Scholar Y was cleared. The examination system was reformed. The emperor praised the unnamed noblewoman who exposed corruption while hiding her merit. Unnamed, me. I had committed academic sabotage and somehow became a defender of scholarly fairness. Scholar Y even came to the Lin residence to apologize. "I misunderstood you, Miss Lin," he said with tears in his eyes. "You endured the world's criticism to cleanse the examination hall." I almost threw tea at him. I did not endure criticism. I invited it. There is a difference. After that, things became ridiculous. I ordered the demolition of an old market street because it smelled bad near my favorite pastry shop. Heartless, right? Wrong. The demolition uncovered illegal gambling dens, kidnapped girls, and a secret warehouse of stolen relief grain. The commoners lit incense for me. I forced all street vendors near my favorite road to purchase matching red awnings because their mismatched stalls offended my eyes. Cruel waste of money, right? Wrong again. Customers found the street easier to navigate. The vendors' income doubled. Other districts copied the Lin Red Market system. The merchants begged me to design more streets. I punished a group of arrogant young masters by making them sweep the city gate in public for 3 days. Public humiliation, obviously. Except the commoners saw noble sons cleaning streets for the first time in history and called it equal justice under heaven. I did not even know where they got these phrases. Every selfish thing I did became policy. Every petty revenge became reform. Every insult became wisdom. And the more I tried to correct them, the worse it became. One day, an elderly woman knelt in front of my carriage and cried, "Miss Lin, you are a living bodhisattva." I looked at her, then at my maid, then back at her. "Madam, I once had a woman whipped because she spilled soup on my skirt." The elderly woman wiped her tears. "You must have had your reasons." I closed the carriage curtain. I could not work under these conditions. My family found the whole thing hilarious. My father laughed for the first time in 3 years. "My daughter," he said proudly, "is so wicked that heaven itself bends around her." My eldest brother raised his cup. "To Yuyao. May all her schemes continue accidentally benefiting the empire." My second brother smiled. "Careful. At this rate, the emperor will summon her." I pointed at him with my chopsticks. "Do not curse me." Naturally, the emperor summoned me the next day. The palace was annoying. Too many rules. Too many stairs. Too many people pretending not to stare. I entered the imperial study expecting punishment, reward, or some tiresome lecture about noble virtue. Instead, I met the crown prince. He was sitting beside the emperor, reading one of the reports about me. Tall, composed, handsome in the irritating way men become when they know everyone admires them. He looked up. I looked back. His first words to me were, "Are you doing this on purpose?" I immediately liked him less. Doing what? Creating public reforms through private misconduct. That was such a court official sentence that my head almost hurt. I am creating inconvenience through personal preference. The crown prince studied me. The emperor coughed behind his sleeve. I suspected he was laughing. The crown prince continued, "You slapped Lady Zhu. She copied my hairpin. You exposed her family's neglect. Accidentally. You disrupted the examination bureau. For revenge. You cleaned the market district. Because it smelled. You made noble sons sweep the city gate. Because they annoyed me." He set down the report. "So none of it was intentional." "Absolutely not." The emperor laughed openly this time. The Crown Prince did not. That was the dangerous thing about him. He actually listened. Most people heard what they wanted. The Crown Prince heard what you tried to hide. He said, "You understand people." I frowned. "Unfortunately. You know what they fear. Usually. What they want. Obviously. What they will tolerate. People tolerate anything if they think it benefits them. And you use that." "Of course." He looked at me for a long moment. Then said, "That is governance." I stared at him. "No. That is manipulation. Most governance is." The Emperor made another coughing sound. I began to understand why the Crown Prince had lasted so long in the palace. He was more shameless than he looked. After that meeting, he began appearing everywhere. At banquets, at hunting grounds, at temple festivals. Once, unbelievably, at my favorite pastry shop. I looked at him over a plate of osmanthus cakes. "Your Highness, are you following me?" "Yes." "Honest, terrible. What happened to subtlety?" I found it inefficient. I hated that I respected the answer. He kept asking me strange questions. If a corrupt official fears exposure but loves money, how do you make him confess? Threaten his son's marriage prospects. If merchants refuse to lower grain prices. Flood the market with cheaper substitutes, then spread rumors that hoarded grain attracts mold spirits. If noble daughters keep competing wastefully. Create a ranking system for charitable donations and make generosity fashionable. The Crown Prince listened to every answer like I was delivering sacred doctrine. I was not. I was simply very good at being unpleasant. The problem was that he used my answers. A month later, corrupt officials confessed. Grain prices fell. Noble daughters emptied their jewelry boxes to sponsor orphanages because no one wanted to rank below their rivals. The capital praised the Crown Prince's wisdom. The Crown Prince looked directly at me during the victory banquet and raised his cup. I raised mine back with a smile that meant, "I hope you choke." He smiled like he understood. I was in trouble. The real disaster came during the Empress selection. I had no intention of entering. Marriage sounded irritating. Palace marriage sounded like prison with better curtains. Becoming Empress sounded like being trapped in a lifetime of meetings. Unfortunately, my father submitted my name. I confronted him immediately. "Father." "Yes, precious." "Why am I on the candidate list?" He looked up from his military report. "Because the Emperor asked." "You could have refused." He blinked as if I had said something childish. "No, fair." So I entered the selection determined to fail. Not politely. Spectacularly. First round, embroidery. The other ladies stitched peonies, cranes, phoenixes, and poems about virtue. I embroidered a tiger biting a phoenix. The palace matrons gasped. I expected elimination. Instead, the Empress Dowager praised it. "She has spirit. A weak Empress cannot sit beside a dragon." Second round, music. I played badly on purpose. Not a little badly. Aggressively badly. The zither sounded like a dying goose. The other candidates looked horrified. The Crown Prince, who was supposed to be observing silently, lowered his head. His shoulders shook. He was laughing. The Empress Dowager said, "At least she is honest about her dislike." I prefer this to false modesty. Still not eliminated. Third round, moral judgment. A palace maid was accused of breaking a jade cup. The candidates were asked what punishment was appropriate. The gentle girls said forgiveness. The strict girls said a fine. I said, "Slap the supervisor." The hall went silent. I explained, if a maid can carry imperial jade alone without oversight, either the supervisor is lazy or the system is stupid. Punishing the weakest person teaches everyone to hide mistakes. Punishing the person in charge teaches people to prevent them. The Empress Dowager nodded. The Crown Prince smiled. I realized too late that I had accidentally sounded intelligent. So in the final round, I decided to insult everyone. When asked what quality an empress needed most, I said, self-love. The noble ladies looked scandalized. Perfect. I continued, a woman who does not love herself will beg to be loved by others. Then she becomes easy to threaten. Give her praise and she bends. Give her affection and she forgets herself. Give her duty and she disappears into it. I love myself too much to be controlled that easily. The hall became quiet. Not scandalized quiet. Thoughtful quiet, oh no. The crown prince looked at me like I had just handed him the answer to a question he had been asking for years. I wanted to take the words back. The Empress Dowager smiled. Excellent. That was how I accidentally became the leading candidate. Naturally, the other noble girls tried to scheme against me. Finally. My territory. Lady Duan spread rumors that I was cruel to servants. True but rude. So I arranged for her private maid to accidentally reveal that Lady Duan's family had been withholding servant wages for years. Lady Duan cried. The palace investigated. Her family paid everyone back with interest. The servants thanked me. I was furious. Lady He planted a love token in my room to imply I had a secret lover. Amateur. I planted it back in her brother's study, along with 3 forged poems and a fake confession from a married duchess. By morning, Lady He was too busy saving her brother's reputation to bother me. Unfortunately, this also exposed that her brother had been blackmailing widows. More praise for me. Lady Sun tried poisoning my tea with a mild laxative. Not deadly. Just humiliating. I respected the restraint. So I sent her an entire banquet of laxative pastries. She missed 2 selection rounds. The palace physicians discovered her original poison during the investigation. The Empress Dowager said I had turned schemes back upon the schemers with mercy. Mercy. I had sent a woman toilet pastries. These people were impossible. By the time the selection ended, half the candidates had exposed themselves, the palace staff adored me, the Empress Dowager approved of me, and the Crown Prince looked increasingly smug. I finally cornered him in the Imperial Garden. You planned this. He looked at me mildly. Which part? All of it. Be specific. I hate when you do that. I know. That was not an apology. I narrowed my eyes. You wanted me to become Empress. Yes. The directness startled me. Why? Because you are selfish. That was not where I expected the conversation to go. He continued, selfless people are easy to destroy. They can be guilted, used, praised into exhaustion. But you protect yourself first. Obviously. And because you protect yourself, you understand why others do the same. I looked away. Annoying man. Annoyingly accurate. He stepped closer. You are mean, spoiled, manipulative, and proud. Are you proposing or reading charges? Both. I almost laughed. He continued, quieter this time. You have bottom lines. You do not kill. You do not harm children. You do not destroy the helpless. But you are willing to slap the powerful, shame the hypocrites, scheme against schemers, and torture those who think mercy is weakness. I should have been offended. I was not. It was the most accurate compliment I had ever received. The Crown Prince held out his hand. Become my Empress. I looked at his hand. Then at him. Will I have to pretend to be virtuous? No. Can I still slap people? When deserved. Can I spend extravagantly? Within treasury limits. Can I bully corrupt officials? I encourage it. I considered. Palace life still sounded annoying. But the food was excellent, the jewels were unmatched, the power was convenient, and the Crown Prince had the rare good sense to appreciate me without trying to fix me. So I placed my hand in his. Fine. His smile softened. I immediately regretted finding it attractive. Years later, people called me the Saint Empress. It was embarrassing. I tried correcting them at first. I said I was selfish. They said a woman must first value herself to value the empire. I said I was spoiled. They said the empire deserved an empress who knew the worth of beautiful things. I said I was mean. They said justice often sounded cruel to the guilty. I said I framed people. They said I exposed hidden crimes. I stopped explaining. There is no arguing with people determined to worship you. As Empress, I lived exactly as I pleased. I wore the finest silks. I ate the best food. I banned ugly palace decorations because suffering should not extend to interior design. I made corrupt officials cry. I made noble families sponsor public granaries if they wanted banquet invitations. I made lazy princes supervise flood repairs in summer heat. I once slapped a duke in front of the entire court because he called widows burdensome mouths, and the emperor, my husband, that shameless man, only asked whether my hand hurt. The historians wrote that I ruled with fierce compassion. Wrong. I ruled with excellent taste, personal grudges, and a deep dislike of incompetence. But I did rule. And if the empire improved because I refused to let stupid people make my life ugly, that was merely a side effect. A very convenient one. So yes, I was born into a villain family. Yes, I ran rampant through the capital. Yes, I slapped, schemed, framed, threatened, and ruined people whenever they annoyed me enough. And yes, somehow the people called me a saint. I still think they were exaggerating. But if they insisted on kneeling, praising, and building temples to my supposed virtue, who was I to stop them? I told you from the beginning. I am not a good person. I simply happen to be very good at being loved.